it's not a bad thing, but certainly just sort of an era of Spurs basketball that I'm sure when we look back in 5, 6, 7 years, we're not even going to remember it happened. So
DeMar DeRozan is returning to San Antonio for the first time since the sign and trade went down. And he's playing like an all-NBA player, MVP candidate, which makes me think, was this a fair trade for the Spurs? And how did this trade impact the Spurs for the future? So I'm going to ring up some friends from the Alamo City Limits Podcast, Noah Magaro George and Damien Bartonek. Let me throw it to you, Noah.
What's going on, everybody? This is Noah and Dame. You know us from the Alamo City Limits Podcast. I'll go ahead and get us started. Obviously, everything is 2020 vision and hindsight, but halfway through the season, how do you feel about this DeMar DeRozan trade that they did this summer? Sent him to Chicago. Spurs got a first rounder. They got a few second rounders. They got Thaddeus Young and Al-Farouq Aminu. What is your perspective on the trade now?
I think considering that they got some picks out of it, I think it was fine. But, I mean, you'd like to see Thad Young play a little bit. And, I mean, Aminu was here for the scrimmage, and that's about it. So it's not exactly the best compensation for a player that's playing at an MVP level right now. But considering where the Spurs are operating from, I think all in all it's fine. That first-round pick might be juicy in 2025, so who knows?
Yeah, it's a 2025 first rounder. If it doesn't parlay by then, it's going to parlay by 2028. Who knows where the Bulls are going to be by then? Maybe they get another top pick along with their first round pick. So I don't think it's anything special for the Spurs, but it was definitely better than letting DeMar DeRozan walk for nothing. And now let's go ahead and move it on to how do we feel about DeMar DeRozan? I mean, we know what he did in a Spurs jersey, but like you mentioned, first season in Chicago, they are second place in the Eastern Conference. The man is playing on a fringe MVP level. How do we feel about that now that he's gone?
Happy to see him play at this level. We all knew he had it in him. That team in Chicago really fits his play style much better than the one in San Antonio. But with that being said, I think everyone's happy. Every Spurs fan should be happy. And I know me and you just kind of talking about DeMar just whenever we do. He's a great dude, and it couldn't happen to a better guy. So, yeah, I think we're all happy here.
Definitely proud of DeMar, right? I mean, he may have not gotten the job done in terms of getting San Antonio a championship, but that was never the expectation. Kawhi leaving,
exactly.
That was sort of the beginning of the end for San Antonio. He came in here, did his part. He was a good veteran. He taught the young guys, imparted his knowledge to them, and he moved on to a better situation. And really, that's what the Spurs try to do with all their veterans, from Pau Gasol to LaMarcus Aldridge to Mark Carroll, even to Thaddeus Young now. So I'm really happy for DeMar. Do you think that the trade helped San Antonio, or did it hurt him? How do you feel now that he's gone? Do you wish he was back, or do you think it was the right move to let him go?
I think considering where the San Antonio roster is at right now, I think it's fine that they let him walk. Obviously, in 2017, 2018, when the whole Kawhi stuff first, started happening, the Spurs wanted to compete. I mean, they were in the heat of battle trying to compete and win a title. So they had to make a move to really get someone that can contribute right away, contribute to winning. So I think the DeMar Arrow was strong. It was a fine era, all things considered. Of course, you wanted to get a title, but that was never the expectation. I mean, when you give away a player like Kawhi Leonard, it's really hard to kind of replicate what he brings. So I think the era helped for the short term that it was here. I mean, look at the young guys have nothing but great things to say about him anyways. I think the leadership, the veteran presence that he brought, on top of the winning intangibles that he brought, I think overall you can be happy with it. And I think the DeMar Arrow was a success when you consider just the entire Kawhi situation and what they got out of it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go in a different direction. I don't think it was a failure or anything like that, but I did feel like it delayed the inevitable in terms of San Antonio rebuilding. Because you see a lot of people saying now, well, the Spurs are in the first year of a rebuild, but they haven't been to the playoffs in 2 straight years. DeMar DeRozan was part of that playoff team that was the 7th seed. You took the Denver Nuggets to 7 games as a 7th seed, right? But what did it really accomplish? I mean, you didn't get any closer to a championship. Like I said, just sort of delayed the inevitable. So for me, it's not that the DeMar DeRozan era was not a success. It just sort of was a thing that happened. It sort of reminds you of like things that happened around the league with the Magic. Like, did keeping Vucevic around that long help them? Not really. I mean, it just delayed their rebuild, and now you see they have Jalen Suggs and guys on that roster like Cole Anthony, and they probably are doing something that they could have done like 2 or 3 years ago. And for me, I probably would have been fine with them rebuilding the second he got here when they figured out it wasn't working. So, it's not a bad thing, but certainly just sort of an era of Spurs basketball that I'm sure when we look back in 5, 6, 7 years, we're not even going to remember it happened. So that's just how I feel about it. That was some quick hitters from me and Dame. You can find us on Alamo City Limits. If you love this kind of content, we're going to be doing this more for SpursTube. So go ahead and subscribe to SpursTube. Check our stuff out. Again, that's Alamo City Limits. You can follow us on Twitter. You can find us on anywhere you get your podcast. But thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see y'all soon.
Ultimately, I agree with these guys. I think DeMar DeRozan really did do us a solid by making this sign and trade happen so we could get something back in return. Appreciate Damien and Noah for coming on. If you want to check out their podcast or follow them on Twitter, the links are in the description below. Let me know what you guys think of the trade now that hindsight is 2020. Only time will tell how this pans out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, check out some more content, doing film room breakdowns and more. Check us out on Instagram. Every time the Spurs win, I'm dropping a new highlight reel. Follow us on Twitter, where I'm occasionally live tweeting the game. And if you want to support the channel, check out the link to the Patreon. Go Spurs, go. Por vida.